I would be a terrible host if I didn't ask, but you said that there's also Netflix involved. So what Netflix is the Netflix viewing of a trials champion, a double trials champion, we should say?
Wow, I'm both happy and a little embarrassed that you asked. I have a very specific show I like to watch while I eat my Uber Eats that I ordered, to my bedside. And that's
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another installment of the Grappling Hour. My name is Rafa Sparza. We have an incredible show lined up for you guys today. Our very good friend, Brianna Ste-Marie, is returning to the show. She keeps winning. There's very little we can do. We always put out the offers to those who get the big wins, and she's picked up a number of big wins, so I'm so happy she came back on the show this week to talk about her ADCC Trials run. Before we get to that interview, though, I do have a big announcement. We here at the show are going to start doing a subscription-based service. What does that mean? I know, it's very scary. Here's the good news. There will always be a free component of the Grappling Hour. I work too hard to try and get these athletes, and I want to make sure that they get seen. Having said that, we're going to be doing something where you can get early access to these interviews. And I don't want to go too much into detail here because chances are you're here to see Brianna and not hear me talk about it. But if you see this full interview and you like what you see, I would love for you to support us here at the show. And the way you can do that, go to this link that's all the way down in this, description area and subscribe to our mailing list. And then next week, we will be giving you the details on how you can become a subscriber should you choose to do that. And if you don't want to do that, we will still have a way that you can see these in the future. But for right now, let's talk about Brianna Ste-Marie. Her amazing performances, the fact that she already won a trials, and yes, she will be at ADCC this September. I'm excited for you to hear her journey that she had a couple weeks ago. And you know what? No more delaying. Let's get straight to that interview right now. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another installment of the Grappling Hour. My name is Rafa Sparza. I'm your host, your friendly neighborhood BJJ podcaster. It is a great day for grappling, and I'll tell you why. I mean, it's always a pretty good day to watch grappling happen on your television. It's an even better day when friends of the show beast through competition. And I have to tell you, if you've come on our show and you've been a guest, we're going to root harder for you. It's just the way it works. I'm not saying we won't root for you if we don't know you or we haven't interviewed you, but it means that those people who have taken the time to come on our show, and our guest today not only has been on our show a few times, not only has won just about everything under the sun, but it is so dope that after winning the East Coast Trials just a few months ago, and as we all know, that weird thing that happens because ADCC's like, we don't know what to do with women. It's weird. She ended up winning the West Coast Trials as well. And it goes to show you that even with obstacles, she won ADCC Trials not once, but twice, which means I think we can put some respect on her name. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the show your friend, ours, one, Brianna Ste-Marie. Brianna, how you doing?
I'm great, thanks. Thanks for having me back on. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Hey, it is so good to see you win. I gotta tell you, I'm watching the whole trials here just from the comfort of my home, and the smile on your face was replicated here in this viewing party because you looked so happy and so, I don't want to say the word relieved, but you looked
Yeah.
like, oh, this is done, and now I can be a happy human being. So do you mind telling us what was going through your mind as you ended up winning the big dance?
Yeah, well, you pretty much nailed it on the head there. Happiness, sheer happiness, and lots of relief. Not necessarily because I don't love competing, but just because ADCC has, for years now, like has been my main goal and kind of like everything I've been working towards. So just that relief that I've earned my spot, and like no one can take it from me. After having won East Coast, it was like encouraging. Okay, I've done well in the rule set, but then as you mentioned, women have to win the East Coast trial, the West Coast trials. Um, so then having been able to do both and kind of not only get my spot in ADCC, but in a way like kind of make history a little, I guess, since there hasn't been the two trials before, and it kind of I feel like the presence of the East Coast trial kind of highlighted how ridiculous maybe the situation is for the women, and it put a lot of attention on that fact, this weekend. So I think there was a lot of it was like a multifaceted happiness.
Was it hard to take congratulations because winning the East Coast Trials was an accomplishment and it's a lot of hard work, but you didn't get the satisfaction like other trials winners on the men's side where you go, hey, congratulations, you're going to the thing. You got, hey, congratulations, I can't wait to see you do it again. So was it difficult to kind of process that, or were you able to just understand that's what it is and kind of just forge ahead? Like, I'd love to hear what
Yeah.
your feeling was on that.
Well, so definitely initially I was ecstatic just because I'd never competed in an ADCC rule set before. So to come out victorious like meant a lot to me. It was my first opportunity to test out that rule set. But then I would guess as like the months went on, I realized how many people weren't aware that like having won East Coast didn't actually get me my ticket to ADCC. Um, so it kind of got a little frustrating, and it's nothing on the people asking because obviously they're well intentioned, but I got a little frustrating having to explain for like the 100th time, and I'm not even exaggerating that number, that I didn't in fact earn my spot yet. So definitely that, and then with each time you have to say it, it kind of makes you think about it even more and like get a little bit upset at the circumstance. But I mentioned in my post after the finals, my interview that I did with Flo, that regardless of the circumstance, I am willing to do whatever it takes to earn my spot. And I'm happy to have earned my spot in kind of like a cool fashion, having won, coast to coast. But yeah, so a bit bittersweet, I guess, on that end.
Yeah, I mean, I had to dial in my congratulations when we talked because, on the one hand, I'm very happy for you, but on the other hand, I don't want to uh, try to heap on more stress or more
Yeah,
uncomfortableness because it's not anything I'm doing, it's not anything you're doing. There are some people who are trying to help. It's just, I feel like pretending that it doesn't exist is worse. I feel
yeah,
like not calling attention to it, I feel like just pretending like, oh, it's no big deal, is not truly fair or appropriate. So I think it's important to celebrate the win, but also call out what it is. In your particular case, though, getting this double stamp means there's no mistake. Like, this is your bid. So I know that has to feel very satisfactory. And with that being said, we talked a little bit about the relief, but you're so good at being calm and composed and happy about your surroundings. You have a family that doesn't let you get too excited or too crazy about certain wins. But was this different in any other circumstance? Because, yes, it did kind of elude you. You were excited to have this format and this style. But did you allow yourself to at least celebrate this one a little bit more?
Oh, definitely. Like, this one, I think I'm a very nervous competitor. I actually like, backstage, if I'm like taking a sip of my water bottle, my hand is visibly shaking. And I definitely feel the anxiety and the stress going into a competition. And then, kind of like I mentioned before, because this was just like everything I'd ever dreamed of, I felt that fear of having it like slip through my fingers, like, losing a decision or like making a bad call strategically and like, losing to someone maybe that I felt like I could have beaten on another day, or just, getting beat because someone was better than me. All these things were definitely going through my head. And then on top of that, you have it like being the biggest trials in history with this women's division that's actually like larger than some of the men's divisions to earn their spot. So and then you see the list of people registered, and it's all like, it's everyone that I've feared for the past 5 years. And whatever, I'm honest about that too, right? Like for sure I see like people who are registered for a competition, and I'll see some names and I'm intimidated, but I think like I'm also good at like overcoming that and just kind of like respecting them enough but not too much either. But yeah, so there's a lot of like emotions going into this, and I'm like not shy after to really enjoy my win, right? Because I feel that I conquered so many negative emotions, so many bad thoughts. So then when I do win, I have no chill. I'll be really happy. I cried after, and I think it's important to relish in our victories too.
Absolutely. Listen, I'm all about a few things. Number one, as a guy who works in TV, there's something about telling people not to have emotion that makes it harder to package what we do. Now, I'm not saying, play it up and go over if you're not feeling it, but what you're feeling, feel. So,
Yeah,
like, just in that moment, and sometimes people don't even know how they're going to feel. Like, you can't drill what it's like to win with those circumstances. There's no like, and you just won. All right, take another lap, go around. We're going to drill that 5 more times a day and we're going to get that down. You can mentally think it, but in the moment, sometimes you just do and act a certain way. So for me, I like seeing that. I was very interested to hear about the mental process because you did mention there were some mental challenges. But before I ask about that, I did want to point one thing out just because this is something I've been picking up lately in these interviews. We're interviewing the folks who won, is that a lot of the people that we're talking to have been very honest about what they feared and what was uncertain to them for their opponents. And I think that is a great through piece for so many of the people who are so successful is that they recognize the actual sort of challenges that they're facing and they don't pretend like they don't exist. So
yeah.
completely understandable. And the people who also podium with you have very similar stories that I'm sure you'll see if you watch the other interviews, which is a nice plug to anybody watching. Go watch the other ones. All right, let's get to the question, which is what were you feeling mentally then in terms of the transition into this ADCC?
I think, kind of, I feel going into competition like very similarly like to the first day I competed. I don't think that I get any less nervous, or if anything, I get more nervous. But it's just kind of like, kind of like you mentioned, it's embracing those feelings, and knowing that I kind of like lean on the fact that I've dealt with it in the past. And the very fact that I've been feeling this for every competition since white belt, it's like, okay, well, you felt this way last time and you still had success. You were still able to get on the mats and like, display your jujitsu. So definitely just kind of embracing those emotions instead of fighting them. And sorry, I totally lost my train of thought.
You're okay.
But yeah, no, I think just kind of being honest with the feelings you have going in. Oh yeah, I remember. I want to mention just that. Another factor too is the weight cut, because it kind of mentally we were discussing it before.
Mhm.
I find myself like incredibly irritable, low energy, and that's definitely something challenging because you're going into the weeks leading up to ADCC. I know I'm about to have like my greatest career challenge, but then when I have to walk up the stairs to my apartment after a day of training, I'm like fatigued because I'm not eating what I should be in order to make the weight. And then that kind of accentuates those feelings of like, am I ready for this? Can I handle this? So that's never easy. And it actually plays into also the women's weight divisions because I was so unenthused about weight cutting again because I've been struggling a lot lately, and I feel that like I have I see like impacts to my general health from all the weight cutting that I've been doing. I was even tempted to message Mo and ask him to put me in the 60 plus category, but then then you think to yourself, okay, well I walk around at like 140, 143 on like a big day. Am I really going to risk my dreams on taking potentially like a 50-pound weight disadvantage on a rule set that favors a wrestler? So, but whereas if there was like kind of like this middle class, then I could have easily moved up to that and not put myself through this weight cutting. And I'm sure that there's plenty of female athletes that feel the same way. They probably, someone who walks around at like 145, 150, I'm sure they're going to be far from being the biggest person in the division. And when you're talking about like overtime where you got to take someone down, like, if you look at the sport of wrestling, like even when I train, I go to the wrestling club, you're never wrestling with people who are like more than a 10-pound weight difference. Like the coaches, even in practice, don't put you together. So definitely like all these factors kind of come into play in my mental game. But again, it's just always comes back to recognizing that I've felt this way before, and kind of that I've always been able to conquer it. So this time shouldn't be any different.
And it's so hard. Like we are always advocating for, oh, in jiu-jitsu, we don't suggest that you do weight cuts, but there is a difficulty in the advantages that are given to people who sometimes do use that to their benefit because, you don't know it until you're in the round and you're like, are they the same weight? Did we check them? And when was the last time we checked this person's weight? Because sometimes people feel it and it's something that, is part of the weight cut. And sometimes it's just part of, you're the one out there and experiencing it. Other people are enforcing the rules, other people are watching it, but you're the one feeling it. And I think there is something to be said about being as honest and as real as you can be in terms of your own like actual physical health, because taking a strong mental health side is a very difficult thing in itself, but then trying to make sure that your body doesn't just kind of
Hmm.
decompose when you need it the most. So
Yeah.
I'm very glad to hear that you were able to make it work, you were able to do it. I would like to know, because you are somebody with a good set of mental abilities in terms of how you go through these challenges, what do you attribute to helping you get through that? Because it doesn't sound like an easy process when you're by yourself for a bit and you're thinking about it. I think that's when you tend to overthink things. So what is it that helps you? Is it a person? Is it training more? Is it time and space? Is it, after you've eaten, starting to be like, I'm only going to decide big things after dinner now? Like, how does that process work for you?
I mean, all of those sound pretty accurate. Like, especially the eating, I'm always like, I get to my darkest point and then I break my fast and I have like my meal and I'm like, oh, you know what? Maybe things aren't so bad. But no, I mean, I think it's definitely a mix of factors. Like, I'm sure it's helped that I've kind of competed in sports my whole life. So I've always, been exposed to that side of things. Um, and then also, I mean, it's silly, but I think I might have even mentioned this on this podcast before, but I like heavily lean on like the people I'm surrounded by. I feel that I'm surrounded by like really great human beings, and I just think to myself like everything, like all the little sacrifices that they make to help me get ready for a competition, all the training that they give me, and I just think to myself like they're the only people that matter, and they're not going to think differently if I win or I lose. But if I win, it's like a nice, like in a way, like it's a way to give back for everything that they've put into me, So the least I can do is show up and be the best version of myself, and trying to give back for all the work that they've put in with that win. And I'll actually just I just say it to myself over and over again in my head until the ref says fight. I just say for everyone who loves and supports you, and which is like so beyond like immeasurably cheesy, but that honestly helps me a lot because I just like obsessively think of them and no one else. Um, and then the last thing I guess is just training. Training, knowing that I have done everything humanly possible to like get ready for a certain competition. That makes me feel like so much better because if I lose and I've done everything possible, well then that person was better that day, and that's out of my control, right? So if I show up and I took care of my diet to the best of my ability, I trained to the best of my ability in like jiu-jitsu, wrestling, my strength and conditioning. If I didn't cut corners, stepping on the mats, knowing that it kind of brings you a certain level of peace.
That's wonderful. And I'm glad to hear that. Again, I know that you have a good support network, but it is in those times that they really prove their worth. And it's sometimes you feel silly asking them certain questions. You'll be looking at them like, I can't believe I just asked you that. But, that's the kind of voice that you need at that time. So I know how important that could be. I would love to go match by match, but before I do, we always like to go process. So, what did the week look like? We obviously got a little bit of a perspective on the weight cut aspect, but I would like to hear, how was travel this time? How was everything? And then what did you look like day of?
Yeah, actually not on my end, but there was almost like a huge mishap for myself personally, and unfortunately for my a bunch of my teammates, from Montreal, where I booked the Friday morning flight into Vegas, and few of my training partners and friends from Montreal had booked the night flight to Vegas. And that flight, due to like an issue with like the customs and the pilot couldn't get through the customs, their flight got canceled and they ended up missing. Like they showed up to Vegas at like around 11 a.m. So they missed the weigh-ins and were disqualified, which was just like absolutely heartbreaking that like half of us didn't make it down, especially because I think that Montreal, it's not necessarily known as well as like New York City, San Diego, and Austin as these like this big jujitsu hub. But actually, we did a lot of cross training leading up to the event, and I was looking around the room and I felt that I was as well surrounded as someone who's training out of one of these like super clubs. So to see them not being able to make it and display their abilities was a bit heartbreaking. But yeah, on my end, it was just kind of like finishing up the weight cut. So I do like a couple hard trainings Monday, Tuesday, and then mostly just specific. I don't do really like full rolls. I'll just do specifics with like a couple teammates that like I know I've trained with in those like final hours before. So there's not gonna be any surprises. There's not. It's kind of just like just like sweating almost, burning calories at that point, right? You've done all your prep. And then when I got to Vegas, actually, I was happy because usually I take like a hot bath for the last like a couple pounds, but instead I just walked to the dépanneur, the convenience store with a hoodie, and I actually was able to cut the last 2 pounds doing that with Vegas, so that was nice.
I have to acknowledge first, that is so terrible for those people that you trained with. Uh, I feel terrible for them. That's got to be the worst feeling in the world to do all that prep and to go there. How were you able to kind of work around that? And were you able to talk to them? Because again, you're a pretty decent human being. So I know that even though you get in a zone, there is a part of you that has to acknowledge like this is horrible. So how were you able to navigate that?
I mean, definitely, I like. Sorry, a bit of a cough.
You're good.
Um, yeah, no, I felt mostly the emotions came from the fact, kind of like I said, that I actually knew they were capable of doing really well at the tournament. So like, let's say someone who kind of like signed up for fun or kind of misestimated their skills, and like I kind of knew low key that like this was more of like a vacay than an
Mm.
actual like the trials. That wasn't the case with all these people who missed their flights. I knew that they were capable of doing well in their divisions. Um, so I was really sad, and I was trying to, we're all messaging each other and trying to figure out if there was a way they could fly through Toronto instead or whatnot to get in time. And then even Pierre-Olivier Leclerc was talking to Mo to see if they could like weigh in later. And Mo had said that they could come in like 30 minutes later, but by 11 the divisions have already started, so like it was out of his control as well. So yeah, and my coach too was on that flight, so he missed my first two matches, but I was with my other coach, thankfully, so he stepped in. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's just like very unfortunate, out of everyone's control. It
Yeah.
is what it is.
Yeah. And I feel like I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I feel like in some way on our Venn diagram, you like I would be like, okay, now I got to put on even more. Like now I'm representing them because if they don't get their shot, not only am I trying to put on for them, but I know how important this is to do this because I actually have this opportunity. If they're not able to do it, this doesn't happen for everybody. So I would get that in my head and then just do my business. So obviously very difficult to go into, but the day starts off good for you. So I'm glad that we were able to get that sort of a start. What do you remember? Because you had to buy your first round, which again, afforded, you should have. In fact, I
Yeah.
would argue this. I don't understand how in the women's division, if you got to do it twice, they shouldn't just give you like 3 buys. You know what I mean? Or like maybe the offset should just be like you're the incoming like incumbent champion, the interim champ of it. You should just show up at finals and be like, I'm here. But instead, they put you as the first seed, which great, super nice. But you get a bye. The first match happens. Talk to us about that one because it was a quick sub, and that's got to be a good way to start your tournament.
Yeah, 100%. Actually, it was funny because leading up to the tournament, I had told one of my main training partners, that in the gym, I think that like above and beyond what I'm hitting the most is some of my front headlock sequences. But in competition, I'd say like I definitely have had success with those attacks, but um, not as much as some of the other stuff, like my close guard, for example, or whatnot. Um, and then I told him that, and then I ended up finishing, in the opening rounds, a couple front headlocks. So I was actually really happy about that. So I the match started. I think I managed to get to the head right away. And honestly, like, that my first opponent, I kind of felt for in a way because, she pulled guard, and like when I did wrap around her head, I kind of like felt, oh, I'm a little bigger than this girl. And like, if I'm being completely honest, I was like, I feel that I have a size advantage. So I was thinking to myself, oh, maybe she would have, if there was more weight classes, she would have fought down, or I mean, just like thoughts. But yeah, I was able to. It was actually funny because I got to my favorite control right away, and I actually was like, my hands were a little shaky to like lock up the darts because when something goes really well, like a little too quickly, so you kind of like question it. You're like, can I just like lock the darts right now? Like, is this happening? Is it over already? Yeah, so then I locked it up and finished the choke, which was cool.
I love that this much stuff is going on your head for a match that was about a minute and 14 seconds. Like, you had more transitions going on in your head than maybe we even saw in that match, because to me I just go like, oh, business as usual, that looks great, good start for you. But in you, you're like, oh, there should be more weight divisions. And do I even have this I don't know. I'll just try three others. So I think it is cool to hear that process, because I gotta be honest with you, would not have known that was going through your head. When I see that happening, it's also kind of like a fever dream when like there's 8 different matches, that are happening all on one screen. So I'm doing my best to keep up with friends of the show and people who I just like. And I go, okay. And then I think on yours, I saw you walk out and then I saw you walk off. And I go, what? Oh, well, things are good. Okay, great to see. So that's how quickly you were out there. So I always tell people, I go, I always hate for people with your proficiency if there's a streaming buffer kind of moment that happens, and there's like a lag, because you don't know if that lag is long enough where you just did something and then you just see a hand raise and you go, what happened? I don't even know. So I was excited, even though I didn't fully see it in great detail. But we'll go to your second match. This is you and the 16th seed. Oh, no, I'm sorry. This is you and Bree that comes up next. And Bree is a friend of the show, too. So I was like, oh, man, I am staying out of this one.
Yeah. So we'd fought a few times before at American Nationals. We were together in like a small division, so I think we like fought twice, no gi and once in the gi or something. Um, and so I knew, and then we followed each other after, and I saw that like she trains quite a bit of wrestling. So in my head, I was like, it'd probably be favorable for her to bring me into the overtime and try to score off a takedown. So I definitely kind of wanted to avoid that happening. I have been working on my wrestling, but it looked like she puts more time into it, so I don't want to get cocky and think that I could take someone down with a good wrestling base. Unless I have to, unless it comes to that. So she was standing up with me, and then I figured, okay, well, since I don't think she's going to pull guard, probably I could get that. I can jump to close guard. So I kind of waited until we tied up a little bit, and then I jumped to my close, and then I went right away for my patented armbar from close guard, and I was able to get the tap.
Yeah, and Bree's no joke. Like, she is a great competitor. I love training with her. Again, the hardest part about watching these is I go, man, we know so many people. I'm just, okay, let's see what happens. And you win, and I go, awesome. And we move on to the next round. Now, this was where it was the 16th seed. So is this now into day 2 that we're going into, or was that, okay, so now we're at day 2. What happens in between those 2 days? Because this is something that I actually like about the 2-day trials process. I like the break. I don't like making you guys have to do 6 matches in a day, 7 matches in a day. So what are you doing, and what is the general consensus from Team Montreal that's all there as this is going on?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the number one reason I was so happy about that break between day 1 and day 2 is, definitely getting to eat. There's no weigh-ins on the Sunday. I'm actually like a pretty big foodie. And something that was so sad about is that the past couple weight cuts I've been doing for who's number one, it's day before weigh-in. So you kind of like, you make weight and you get over that huge hurdle. And then you have like this really nice like 24 hours where like you kind of don't even have to stress about the fight yet. You can just focus on like eating, watching Netflix, relaxing, like kind of like because the weight cutting is so like emotionally like difficult. And then you can come in fresh for the fight. So for the trials, I definitely appreciated uh, having that time to go eat. And I actually I had like a little bucket list of 3 different restaurants that I wanted to go to while I was in Vegas. And so I did, and I actually managed to hit up 2 of them on Saturday because my division ran first. So I went for lunch and then dinner. And then I went on Sunday night to my third restaurant after having one. So I was really happy about that.
Okay, now hold on. Now you're speaking my language. I'm not good with techniques and all that other crap, but I can tell you, I know my food. Where in Vegas were 2 of those spots?
So the first place was called Tropical Paradise. It was basically like a Hawaiian grill spot. So I shared a bunch of food with my coaches. So we got like a pound of their poke. I got the lao lao pork, which I'd never tried before. That's like cooked inside the leaves. And we got mochiko chicken, which was really nice to have like a little something deep fried, which maybe probably not the best thing to be eating, but you got to treat yourself. And then we got like these little like guava donuts for dessert, which were really delicious. And then for dinner, I went to this place that makes arepas. The Venezuelan, like it's like a bun made out of like corn,
Mm-hmm.
and they split and they fill it with like plantains, beans, and they have like a wood grill. So they grill all like meat and stuff on the wood grill. So it has like a really nice smoky taste. Sorry, I'm getting like way too into the food.
What are you apologizing for? Do you not see like fat? I enjoy food. In fact, you know what? If this becomes a food podcast, no one cares. They're probably going to come more for that. I love hearing this because one of the questions I had when you put down you were a foodie was, what are you craving the most when you're in a different space and universe to be okay to compete? Like, what is the type of stuff that you're like, man, when I get the opportunity, I am going to chow down on?
So like mostly anything that's like super carby. So like places that like like hit you up with like a triple carbohydrate. Like for example uh, if you get like Haitian food in Montreal, we have like a big Haitian community, and you get it, and it's served like whatever your main dish is served with like plantains, rice, beans, and mac salad. So it's like triple the carbs. So stuff like that is like heavily appealing to me. And I actually make these like little obsessive lists in my phone because I want to like reassure myself that when my weight cut is done, I'm not going to like forget that on this day I was craving that certain food, which is just like manic, but but it's how we get through the day. So I just have like these random lists, and some things after I've finished the weight cut, I'm kind of like I don't even like that much. Like why was I like so down for that? And then other things I get to.
Listen, you're not always going to make the right choice when you're in the middle of a weight cut because I'm pretty sure rice cakes even sound delicious at a certain point. So I've been there. I understand. I know, even when I talk to my guys who are tight with me, and one of our guys craves gummy bears, and I'm like, dude, and he fights, and he goes, yeah, dude, legitimately, I want gummy bears. And I go, that's not even the worst thing. It's just you shouldn't. And he goes, I know. So this is a gentleman who likes to fast. And when he fasts, I think there was one day he was coaching some of his kids at like a Muay Thai point kickboxing sort of thing. And he looks at them and he's like, oh, I'm fasting today. I was like, dude, you coach today. You gotta be around. I don't know if you know this. You gotta be important today. You should have eaten. And he goes, I'm fasting. And then he brings out some gummy bears and he starts eating them. And I go, what kind of fast involves gummy bears? Is this what you normally do? Is this what you're doing when you're not fighting and you say you're fasting? This is not fasting. This is the worst thing you could be doing.
Like I call bullshit on this whole fasting thing.
Right? Like I went so in on him. It was like, what is this? This is you're a sugar rush kid too. How are you a nutritionist? You're the worst at this. So I will say, I think it is lovely that you actually keep a foodie journal on your phone. It is what technology is for. Before we go into day 2, you also did mention one thing, and I would be a terrible host if I didn't ask, but you said that there's also Netflix involved. So what Netflix is the Netflix viewing of a trials champion, a double trials champion, we should say.
Wow, I'm both happy and a little embarrassed that you asked. I have a very specific show I like to watch while I eat my Uber Eats that I ordered, to my bedside, and that's the Great British Bake Off.
Get out. Wow. Why the Great British Bake Off?
It's so I really like to like cook and bake and stuff, and it's like one of those shows that's like it doesn't really demand anything. Like you can watch it
Mm-hmm.
like so easily with like minimal like mental investment. But that being said, it's like really hard to watch while I am cutting weight. So sometimes after like a long day of training, I like to watch something that's like a little bit mindless. And then I watch the Bake Off and I get like ideas of things maybe I want to make or whatnot. And it's like the Bake Off is great because like compared to other cooking shows, like if you look at American cooking shows, it's like craziness. It's like
Yep.
here's like a chocolate cake that has black olives in it. You have 12 minutes to make this into a 3-course meal for a family of 5. Go, and everyone's like running around manic. The British Bake Off is more like everyone's like in the tent together and they're all like helping each other out. And like they're drinking tea while their things bake. So it's like really calming. But that being said, I can't watch it while I'm cutting away because it's like torture. So after when I'm like, refueling, I usually put on a little British Bake Off.
Yeah, I'm not an advocate for putting parental controls on actual adult human beings, but when you're weight cutting, I'm pretty sure I would be there being like, no, do not let her watch this right now. I think that's great. And you know what's really good about that show in particular? No bullshit. Just nice people who all are rooting for each other. It is a competitive environment, but one where they're like, you won this one. Oh, that looks actually really good. I would eat that too. And I think that's akin to how most people wish things could be. But as you mentioned, yeah, American reality shows, man, no. We got to pump in that drama. So,
Yeah.
it's like if somebody stole a spoon, it would be the end of the show. It'd be like, I can't believe that bitch took my fork. I'll show her next week when I sabotage her with my alliance. So
100%.
I'm glad that that is your viewing because you might hear other people say for their viewing habits, it's like, oh no, I gotta watch like a war movie. I gotta watch like a comedy that just takes me out of there. Yours is almost exactly what I would have guessed. I was like, I bet she would. So smart play on your part. So but now we know one that breeds consistency in its results. So let's go into day 2. What does day 2 look like? And things have to be feeling pretty good because you had a nice set of food, you had some relaxation, you're hopefully able to get some sleep that night. So let's get into what day 2 looks like.
Yeah, so my first match was against Joni Chamberlain. And I had never fought her before, but we had been like at the same events before, and kind of just like never having matched up, at trials last year and even like years ago in New York City, we were both in like this like 8-women invitational. We just never faced off. So yeah, so I knew that she was like a well experienced black belt, and I know that she had at East Coast Trials she had a match with Alex Enriquez, who's amazing. And Alex Enriquez had passed Joni's guard, but then right at the end of the match, Joni had come back and like taken Alex's back, but not long enough to get the points before the buzzer. So I was like, okay, she's clearly like I have to fight until the very last moment. I have to make sure I don't give her any space. She's clearly opportunistic and technical. So yeah, so I kind of went into the match, and then I had a feeling that she was going to pull, kind of do that like push pull to sit in under the legs, and then that's what she did. And I just immediately went to my chin pick control, which is one of my favorite things to do, and rolled over the top, connected the head and arm control, and again was able to feed through with my Darce setup I like to do from the gable grip. Yeah, and then I went straight into the mount to finish because I felt that I'd lost her shoulder a little bit. So I knew from the side control would have been a little bit tricky. So I went and forced the mount position instead.
That was awesome because as I start watching this on day 2, you obviously look at a little bit of momentum. You look at how things are playing out. And as the number 1 seed, you're looking real good as the number 1 seed. Having said that, I also look at brackets. And as I
Yeah.
look at brackets, I go, oh, what happens? Oh,
Yeah.
That's a great match. And I thought about it and I said, I like that it's happening here. Don't get me wrong. But that's like a who's number one match. Like that
Yeah.
is something that is a premium. I almost felt guilty that I wasn't paying extra for it sort of match because I go, oh, that's super dope. I really want to see how that goes. So a lot of eyeballs are on that one. So take me through your quarterfinals match with one of the best in the biz as well.
Yeah, so almost exactly what you had said. Like, I just thought to myself, I was like, it is testament to how crazy this trials is that I'm facing Raquel Canuto in a quarterfinals match. Like that's exactly what you said. It's like that is something I could see, as like a super fight on who's number one or fight to win or whatever, as like one of the main fights. So to be fighting in the quarters, and then what was crazy too is I saw like also on my side of the bracket was Tata Ribeiro, and I thought, like, I was pretty sure that she was going to advance through. And I was like, pretty wild that I'm fighting Raquel Canuto. And if I win, my reward is to face Tata, who's another competitor that I completely admire, and has beautiful jiu-jitsu. And I was like, wow, these are some pretty solid matches coming my way. But yeah, I actually maybe was a smidge more nervous for Tata just because I'd watched some of Raquel's matches, and I saw that she had amazing pressure passing. But that being said, that's a lot of like what I see at BTT every day, is kind of a lot of like heavy pressure passing. So as much as I was still scared shitless for this match, I did think, okay, stylistically, I know how to deal with pressure. Like I'm there every day, with my teammates at BTT. So I was like, okay, this is I just can't, I can't let the what's the word? I guess not the aura around her, but the mystique around her or something like that kind of like take over and overthink this because, I always like to compare it to one of my teammates that I train with, and I'm like, okay, can her pressure, be worse than this guy who like smashes me every day, but I managed to survive and then maybe get a sweep or whatever. So I kind of just like to like, ground myself a little in that, and then I ended up pulling guard. I saw that she had like, in previous tournaments, she's had good takedowns. So I didn't want to necessarily engage in that. Um, so I pulled guard and then I got to my half guard, which is one of my favorite positions to work from. When I got to half guard, there was like, I think 4 minutes left. So to be completely honest, I thought to myself, like, well, I'm not going to put in too much work before the 3 minute mark, because sweeping from half guard, usually you gotta sacrifice a little bit of your soul to get it done. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to do some huge scramble to not get rewarded for it. So I kind of like chilled a bit. And then when the points started, I went for my John Wayne sweep that I really like to do, which failed, but the off balancement would let me close the guard, which is my ultimate favorite position. And then I was able to start working from my high guard sequence, which by the way I have a DVD for, so maybe I'll just drop that in. So if anyone wants to learn
Get
how to
out. Listen, I've never been more proud of you. Look at that. Look at like a champ. Like that. Perfect drop in that's like, oh, if you guys like that, I don't know. It's like a thing I got on a DVD. Anyway, back to my analysis.
yeah, so that's it. So I really like to play off of the arm lock attack and the back control, and the way she was reacting was exposing more her back. But then the clock was ticking. 3 minutes is not a very long time, and I just thought to myself, like, even in my finals against Alex Enriquez in the East Coast trials, like it took me like, man, like 4 minutes to put those back hooks in, and I was like, I don't have this kind of time, especially against an opponent who knows that she's just got to make it to the end of the round, to go into overtime. So I was like, even though it was more, I felt the back control was more open. I decided to commit more to the armbar. And actually, by attacking the back a little, she kind of like extended her arm, which made it helped me out a little. And then I went into the armbar, and at this point, I was just exhausted. And I remember committing to the armbar because I was like, the worst thing you can do, I've learned from like competition experience, is like wait until the last 30 seconds, because 30 seconds is like seems like a lot of time, but it's not. So when I saw there was like a minute 15, I was like, okay, it's now or never, because like she's gonna be defending this. So like I really like went for it. And at first I extended her arm once, but I wasn't able to like really get like the full extension on it. And then she kind of like wrapped her arms up defensively. So then I just started like disassembling her grips. And then I was able to expose the wrist again. And I remember I actually just like, I'm pretty sure I closed my eyes. I was like beyond like empty in my gas tank, and I just like closed my eyes and gave everything. And I just remember the ref like tapping me, like, stop, stop. She tapped, stop. And then like I let go. But I know it sounds like dramatic, but I actually just like was so exhausted, and I just like kind of went fuck it. And had I not finished that armbar, like I would have been done. She would have taken me down because even when I like stood up to get off the mats, my vision actually like blacked out, and my legs. I don't know if you like seen those UFC fights where like the guy gets knocked and his legs start to like wobble like a weird chicken dance. My legs started to do that, and then my coach had to like catch me as I was going off the mats, and I was kind of just like max out adrenaline. And I was like, and anyways, they made fun of me like for the next week, but I was basically like, I can't see, and I was like, I can't feel my legs, I can't see. And then someone brought me a Snickers, and we were all good.
Oh my God. First of all, a solid roast. I will
Yeah.
say, I'm not sure that I would handle it with your grace. I'm way meaner than I think you are in that sense. I would probably go for blood on most of my friends. But my God, what a great story for that. Because again, to us, I knew it was hard. I knew it would be difficult, but it was a good match. I did like, as you're describing it, kind of how it's not like you're saying, oh, you don't believe she was going to be a hard match. It was just like, hey, all things considered, sometimes your style is easier with a certain person. So in that respect, you're like, actually, her style might play really well into my game. And it truly did seem to play out that way, where I go, oh, you know what? This is kind of going pretty smart. And once you pull, you start making her do some of the work. She's pressure passing. And then sometimes it's really hard if you get a good person where you can't pass. Little mistakes sometimes start to happen. And I think that's where you were able to initiate that push pull. You get her a little bit off balance. You start working your game. And when that happens, I look at you and I did see you were tired, but I didn't know you had the chicken wobble off. I didn't know any of that. So you said that there was a Snickers. What was that recovery like? Because, how much time was there between that next match? Because your next match is also not an easy match. So what happens in that space and time in between?
So I felt like pretty shitty, like faint and kind of wanting to vomit for like about a solid like 15 minutes. But one of my friends had run and bought like Gatorade, Snickers, everything. So at first I couldn't. I was like, if I eat the Snickers, I'm gonna puke it right back out. So I just had like sips of Gatorade. And I just remember telling them, I was like, I don't want them to call me for like, if they don't call me for the next 2 hours, I was like, I'll be happy. Like I was like, they can take their sweet ass time. And then everyone was kind of trying to reassure me. They were like, you for sure you have at least an hour, like, relax, like that one's over with. Like, so definitely like initially you're kind of like panicked because you're like, oh my God, how can I fight again? I can't feel my legs, whatever. They're like all cramped up. But then like, and then 20 minutes later, you're like, okay, like, then I ate something and I felt better. And then I started getting ready, for what I knew was going to be, one of, if not the hardest match of the tournament for me in Tata Ribeiro.
And again, so cool to see these matches happening, because I know it's got to be exciting for you as a person to get these kind of moments that, again, sometimes don't happen. Sometimes these matches don't come. But for you, it's like, oh, man, this is really cool. You've got that momentum. To us, we don't know that's happening to you on the outside. Just from the audience perspective, I didn't know that you were offered a Snickers. And here's the thing. I thought we could maybe Andrew Wiltsey you here and try and get you a Snickers deal. But then you're like, didn't eat the Snickers. And I go, oh, damn, no, Brianna, we got to change that story. Next time we tell that story, it's going to be like, I had that Snickers. And actually, that's what won me the tournament.
So I actually ate it later on and it tasted really good. So
Now, okay,
yeah.
see? Good. I was concerned. I was like, yo, that's some good Snickers money that we're not looking at right now. So we're going to have to reevaluate that. Talk to me about that match, because it was tough, but it was a good match.
Yeah, for sure. So I knew that she had like a really dexterous guard. I knew that she was really technical with her like entries into like leg entanglements and stuff like that. Um, so I kind of like, I was like very aware that this was gonna like, if I had wanted any chance of like passing, that I was gonna have to be like extra sharp. Um, and then I thought too, I was like, with a guard as complex as hers, I was like, there's a chance. Also, I kind of knew that it might go into the overtime, and I knew that maybe that would. I was like, okay, like if it goes into the overtime, I was like, I don't know how much. I know she's like, her guard is really good. I was like, maybe she hasn't invested as much time into the wrestling as I have. I didn't really know, to be honest, but so I kind of figured I was like, either I'm going to manage to get to the head and maybe work like a front headlock attack. I was like, or it's going to go into the overtime. Um, and then there was that moment in the match, she inverted and went into my legs. And then I kind of was just thinking like, oh, like, let me save, like, put my legs into safety. So I just like sat down and took like single leg X on her. And then I just was like, oh my God, like this is a sweep. So then I like immediately, like, I kind of like didn't necessarily do anything technical. I just like decided to like disengage my guard and try to like come back up. And then I was punished for that. And she managed to scramble to my back super well. And then she was on my back. And I just remember thinking, I was like, man, hooks or choke, they're both death. I was like, if she scores a 3, I was like, against like a experienced competitor like her, I was like, the chances of me recovering for this. So she kind of had a choke across my face, but because it was kind of across my top lip, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna focus on the hooks because like, that's either way it's over, right? And then I managed to double underhook her legs to kind of like force like a more deep halfy position. And then what was really nice was that I immediately was able to attack like a single leg. So I think it looked good in the judge's eyes later on for the decision that I went from like a really defensive position immediately to like turning into like offense for myself. And then I remember when I came up with that single leg, I was so tired. And then because all these matches and stress and whatever. And then I was holding the single leg and she was framing against my shoulders. And I knew that like if someone frames the way she was, I was like, you have to pull the leg out. Like that's like, the answer to that. But I was so tired. I just like stood there for like, 20 seconds being like, okay, just pull the leg out, just do it. And then finally, like I pulled the leg out and it worked perfectly. I brought her down. And then my mistake here was that when she scrambled up, I thought like, oh, get to your front headlock. But in essence, I should have instead like just, maybe forced her into a half guard to like keep the top position and like scrambled a little less. And maybe I would have been able to, who knows. And then I think, yeah, and then we kind of wrestled for like, but no one really put in that much intent because there was only like 30 seconds left. Then we went into the overtime. And I remember thinking to myself, like, okay, like you like the thing with wrestling is you just kind of like have to have confidence. You kind of like can't shoot like kind of scared and half assed. So I was like, if you shoot, like just fucking shoot, like your life depends on it. So I got to my 2-on-1 control, and she was posting. So I like to circle to the front, knock the arms up, and come in for the double. It was like, I did the exact thing that my wrestling coach told me not to do, which is when you shoot a double, don't like sit back on your heels. I was sitting on my heels all day long. So Tata managed to sprawl. Then I turned into a single leg. And then I just like, as I was struggling with the single leg, I reminded myself of that nice little rule where if you fail a takedown, you can pull guard. So I just remember counting to 3 in my head. And then as I sat, like just like praying to every God out there that like I hadn't like misinterpreted that rule. And then I didn't get the negative. And then I worked from the half guard, came up, tried to take her down, went into the front headlock position. And then we finished the match there.
That's great. Can I ask just a logistical question here?
Mm-hmm.
Is this something you rewatched back, or is this all from memory?
Yeah, sorry, I totally like blabbed on for like 10 minutes there. I watched back just one part of it, but I didn't watch the full match because I get a lot of anxiety when I rewatch my matches. So I give myself like, a week before I go through them just to like kind of calm down,
Sure. No, and that's not blabbing. What you're describing is championship details. Like these are the things that I think people who are looking to compete need to be doing. I think that there is a consistent through line for enough people who I've interviewed over the years who can break down their matches in this technical of a way that I think makes an edge. May not guarantee you success, but it is a more likelihood that you will experience success if you can talk about things in this way. So we're talking here that you're not even, when you say that you give yourself a week, good, I like that. I actually am a big proponent of space. That even then, when you get the anxiety, you go, I'm going to fast forward to my favorite parts or the parts that I need to learn from, because you're like, I was there. I remember that being bad and I need to learn something from that. So I think that's still equally a viable thing. But yeah, it seemed like just the details that you were providing for us, that was really cool to get. That insight is really, really awesome because I saw a tense match. I wasn't, you always look at these points and go, all right, are they missing a hook here? What are they missing that's not giving them the points? And for you to break down the mental game on what you're trying to do in the wrestling, that's a big difference maker, because some people will go in and try to complete something, and then as a result of not knowing the rules, sometimes they
Yeah.
just don't do it. So that did play a critical juncture in that
Yeah.
match. Now, finals. This was cool. Stage is set. You walk out. You're there again. You've done it once. You know that you've been on big stages for the past few years. You've been crushing it. What is feelings and expectations as you walk out for this final?
So I had fought Jasmine Rocha before at the East Coast Trials in the semis. Um, and I'd beaten her. I scored 3 points with a back take in the overtime. And to get to that back take, I had done like a takedown. Um, and then, so I kind of was feeling like, okay, I know I can do this. Like I faced her before. Obviously, she's gonna have evolved as like an athlete, but I was like very much like, okay, go out there and like take what's yours. Like you've taken out, Raquel, you've taken out Tata. Um, like just I don't know, just like get it done. Like let's fucking go. Um, and then I remember I got my 2-on-1. I went for like a Nuchimata. I think she honestly maybe wanted to play guard a little, so she kind of was like, a little less defensive of the takedown. But she chose to play half guard, which is like, my favorite place to pass from. So right away I was like, okay, let's go. Like, I got like chest to chest with like a chin pick. Um, and then the one thing I do regret from my finals match is that I did play a little safe. Like I got to the mount, and then I made sure I this was the right decision. I made sure to give her my foot to pass again to secure the 3 points for the mount when the point started. But then I had managed to like completely isolate her arm over her head, and I was attacking like arm triangles and such. But I didn't even want to like. I actually prefer to finish the arm triangle from side control. I didn't even want to dismount because I just like didn't want to give her any opportunity whatsoever to like take this from me. And then right at the end, when there was like 30 seconds left, I was like, okay, open up to attack. Like you're pretty safe at this point. And I went for an armbar. I think I could have finished earlier. Again, I was just like, this means so much to me. So I just really didn't want to do anything to lose it. I know she's got like a good Aoki lock. I didn't want to like risk getting caught in like a quick sub or something. But obviously in hindsight, like you always wish that you kind of like people remember the ones that put on like a show, and that go for the kill. So I do kind of regret not having opened up a little bit more. But at the same time, I have my spot at ADCC, and I still won in a dominant manner. I didn't win. I didn't like stall out a decision or anything. I still was like attacking from a good position. So yeah, just thoughts.
What did it feel like? What did it feel to get this win again? Because you'd done it before. We talked about the relief. What are the first things that kind of go through your head?
I just was like over the moon. Like I was crying. I was like dehydrated, so I feel like I was crying, but like nothing was coming out of my eyes. And I was just like so exhausted because like that I respect anyone who does this because it's like it's 2 days of like not knowing. You don't know when you're gonna fight, so you're like constantly on the side trying to stay warm, trying to stay mentally sharp. Like you don't want to go take a nap, but then you find out like, oh, you end up fighting like 2 hours later. I could have taken that nap, but you didn't know that. Like you're trying to like eat to stay fueled, but you don't want to eat too much, because you don't know when you're gonna fight. And it's just like there's like so much that is so taxing, like, and you're in a room for like 12 hours where people are constantly screaming like their life depends on it, coaches, everything. There's music. It's just like such an overwhelming experience. So to have it like all come together in that moment, and like in the end it made it special that I took out like such respected opponents, and obviously in the end I'm happy that I was in like the biggest division ever, and I'm happy that I won my spot in this like really cool way. And I just like, yeah, I just wanted to like cry and like be with my coaches, and just like, yeah, just take it all in.
That's so awesome. That's also very good to hear. Um, I want to get to these last couple questions as we
Mhm.
wind down. The big ones for me are, now you're going to the big dance. What would winning at ADCC mean to you?
um Sorry. Yeah, I mean, like, so all this being said, like I'm over the moon to have won the trials. I do 100% acknowledge to anyone listening who thinks otherwise that was just like the first step. I 100% know that. And what's crazy about there only being the 8 women in the division, in the women's divisions, is that it's 8 absolute superstars, you know? So every single the women who are in my weight class, like I can't think of one where I'd be like, oh, I'm happy I got her first round. Like, no, everyone poses like a different challenge. Everyone is like super accomplished, are incredible competitors. A lot of them that I've been watching since white belt. Um, so I know that like my journey is just starting. I am really happy that there's this nice like kind of like 5-6 month period, because I really, like I was telling my team, I just want to like show up as like the very best version of myself, and I'm happy that I have those months to put in, and like no time is going to be wasted. Like I want to show up with like the absolute like best diet. I want to show up with the best strength and conditioning. I want to show up with like the best jujitsu. Like I want to feel that there's nowhere that I feel weak, and I want to know that there's nowhere that these girls can beat me. There's no, oh, if she gets me here, maybe she's gonna have the advantage. I don't want to feel like that in any position. I want to be an expert at the rule set. So I'm really gonna give like my life for the next like 5-6 months. And obviously winning the big show, like it'll just like that's it. It's just the icing on top, right? If I show up and I do all that and I can pull out the win, well then it just shows that I did all the right kind of work. So.
Absolutely. And what's great is you're going to be coming in super active. Like having qualified twice, having proven that you've got a lot of grappling time on a big stage underneath your belt as well. So you're going to be coming in fresh, and sometimes there's pressure when you're a little cold or you're not as active. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on everybody, but to know that you are in that league of like 8 women that are coming out to try and win this championship has to be an amazing feeling. And I'm so happy for you to have that, because again, like I said, the last time I felt like I was like, congrats, well, let's do it again. Yay. Like a very reserved, I felt almost British in my response of like, good day, like when I messaged you. But I hope you understand it is with full acknowledgement of the cool things that you're doing and the cool things that we see ahead of you. So I would love for you to take this opportunity to shout out anybody who you'd like to take care of your sponsors, anybody who helped you to get to this repeated but not duplicated sort of performance.
Yeah, for sure. As always, I'm gonna like try to kind of avoid saying specific names because I will undoubtedly forget someone. But I will say, my whole team at BTT, everyone that I train with every day there. Um, I guess if I had to mention someone specifically, my main training partner, Corinne Laframboise, she actually just won the belt at UAE Warriors. So it's really cool that we're kind of both killing it in our respective domains. So I will give a shout out to Corinne and everyone else. It's no offense. She did something really epic like 2 weeks ago, so I have to call her out. Um, but yeah, everyone at BTT, and then also, we did a lot of cross training between a few schools leading up to the trials. Obviously, like my second home, everyone at Mizu, um, and everyone at 10th Planet. A few of the guys from TriStar too are coming down. So really, we had a good crew, all helping each other get ready. And then I want to thank my sponsor, my gear sponsor, Hyperfly. Their stuff is top notch. A lot of it's made in the USA, which is super cool. And then I wanted to thank my strength and conditioning coach, Mathieu. If anyone's in the Montreal area, like, man, for real, this guy is like my therapist. He's my personal trainer. He like modifies my program like every time I get injured, which is often, but he helps me feel strong, like whatever weight I fight at. My physios at Physiomentum, Guillaume in particular, who has no mercy on me. Again, if you're in the Montreal area and you're looking for someone to treat you. And then I'll shout out as well my instructional on Jiu-Jitsu X. If anyone is interested in learning how I play close guard, I have like a really, I feel like I have a good system, based on like different stages of reactions you can get from your opponent. And it's truly what I use in competition. So if you ever want to check that out, it's on Jiu-Jitsu X. And stressing that I'm forgetting someone, but I think that's it.
I mean, listen, you're on championship time. You can tell people, like, listen, the champ will acknowledge you in a time that is befitting of the champ. So, you obviously are not like this, but see, this is why I don't win these things, because I would be the worst. But I want to tell you something. Obviously, I've mentioned we were very happy for your personal success. But I want to acknowledge that no matter what happens from here on out, you'll always have that ascribed to your name that you're an ADCC Trials winner twice. But I think there's something deeper between you and the women who competed at these two trials. I think that if something ends up happening, I think it is a testament to all of you. So I think that I'm crossing my fingers here this next time that we see trials. We see maybe a couple more weight divisions. We see maybe the fact that you just win the qualifications process. I think it's growing. I think you made quite the statement. And I think there's something to be said of, yeah, the same person won twice. Why are we doing this? Why can't we just figure something out? Because I think it's time. So this is a testament to you and the many other women. You join a legion of amazing female athletes who deserve respect and, in my opinion, should be qualified outright. So if it changes, just know that you played a big part of it, and so did those other ladies who shared that mat time. So it's a credit to all of them. So I hope that they know that and they feel that, even if maybe they didn't get the result they wanted, understandable, but they're contributing to something bigger.
I 100% agree. And if I could say something in closing, I'll just say, like, honestly, ladies, like, keep showing up. Like, we, at all these events, like, whether it be like who's number one, ADCC, I feel that the women never back up. They're constantly engaging. They're constantly hunting the submission. I see so many exciting exciting matches being put out by the women. So if we keep showing up in numbers, if our, trials divisions keep being bigger than some of the men's trials divisions, like, it's going to be really hard to ignore. So as frustrating as the situation is, like, let's just keep showing our jujitsu, and eventually, like, they won't be able to ignore us.
That's what's up. Brianna, so happy for you. Big congratulations. I'm going to say bye to you off air in just a second. I'm just going to close this, but my thanks to you and congratulations, double ADCC Trials winner. It just feels nice saying it, and I'm not going to stop saying it because you keep winning twice at everything. So it's just what's going to happen, but congratulations to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. All right, guys, stick around. We got just a little bit more show. Don't go anywhere. And that'll do it for this week's show. I hope that you guys enjoyed that interview with Brianna Ste-Marie. Smiley as ever, and couldn't be happier for her. Such a nice person, so Canadianly polite, all of the good stuff. And hey, before you go, just want to remind you guys, you can find us at the Grappling Hour over on the Instagrams. We like to put up a lot of our very first information right there. So if you want to follow along with us, you can see photos of my training, my coaching, in addition to upcoming information about episodes that I think are going to get better and better as we get closer to the big show for ADCC. And don't forget, if you want to find out more about our subscriber plan and you want to become a member of the Grappling Hour family, all you have to do, go check that link down in the description below, and we'll send you some more information. Don't go anywhere, because tomorrow, right back, same time, same place, we're going to have a brand new interview with our good friend Keith Kikorian. But I think it's going to do it for us here today. It's been a great day for grappling. We'll see you back on the mats. Perfect.